Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's talk. Today we are at Boosted Auto. We are doing a talk about some drift event that is just about to happen in the next few days. The drift event is happening at the Red Hill Circuit, and today we are here. I'm delighted to have two guests here with me. One of them a student, and one of them an enthusiast who knows everything on the planning and also the hardware part of it. So we're going to have a discussion here today. I'm delighted to have Nadia with me.
Yes.
Welcome. And also Stigh. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So Stigh, you are a very familiar face when it comes to motorsport in the country.
Okay.
And as we know, you are so much into drifts.
Yep.
Kindly, before we begin the show, kindly take us through what is going to happen and the dates and the location.
Okay. So as usual, ladies first.
All right.
We start with Nadia. Nadia can tell us a bit about herself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Nadia. I love cars, and I own an Evo.
There it is. Oof.
Yes, I'm trying to learn how to drive as good as you guys.
You learn to drift, huh?
Yes, slowly.
Okay. So Stigh will be running the drift event July 2nd. But also in addition to that, we'll be having July 1st. We'll be having a drift school for those guys who want to learn how to drift, learn basics of drifting. And of course, we'll be doing this with a professional drifter. And he'll be assisting guys at least understand the basics, right? After that, of course, you have to go practice. But after the drift school, which is on July 1st, we will be having the main tournament at the Red Circuit, as you said, in Limuru. And the Red Circuit is a perfect training ground, right? Why is it perfect? First of all, there's safety, and it's, of course, a world of area, so there's controlled, there's controlled fans and all that. Secondly, it's a purposely built track, right? So you can have your car there, you can fix it up, you can let it sleep overnight, you can work there with your mechanics. So it's an easier way to do an event. And lastly, it has, of course, refreshments and all these things for fans and all that. So the clubhouse. So it's just gonna be a very nice, small, not so big event, but it's just an event to bring together like-minded guys who want to get into drifting. Of course, we'll be having a bigger tournament end of the year, but this one is just to assist guys to get into the game of drifting, right? Yeah.
All right. So that is a short presentation from my friend Stigh on what is just going to happen on that day. On my left, Nadia with me.
Yes.
So Nadia or Nadia?
Nadia.
Nadia. Okay. Nadia, you're here today, I believe, to learn the aspects of drifting and also to get the awareness.
Yes.
All right.
Once you understand it more, you'll have more interest in it, right?
Yeah, sure. So today we shall be answering questions live from you, our viewers who are live with us, and also some of the questions that have already been posed earlier on through our social media handles. So be ready, and I think we shall be learning together. So Nadia, you had something to ask?
Yes, there are a few questions that I would like to ask.
Yeah.
First of all, what is drift?
Drifting. Well, myself, I'm not a drifter. Although I'm learning how to drift, and I know some of the basics because, like we know, one of the guys who have had a lot of seat time with Lugin. I think ever since Lugin came into the country and started doing drifting, I've learned a few things from him, and also as an enthusiast, I've been trying to learn these things online because I also want to be among the first people to be drifting in the country. Ever since Stigh started this thing of drifting, I've been a big fan, I've been a big follower, so I'll be amongst the first people in the country also to be participating in that event. Even though the one that is coming up, I'll not be participating, I'll just be there just to be helping and assisting here and there. So drifting, I would say drifting is no, just in simple terms, because this is basic.
Yeah.
Trying to control the vehicle, to steer off the vehicle to get into a slide, or to get into oversteer. Then you control it with the intention of getting the vehicle to keep sliding or to keep gliding on the tire. So basically, that is the simplest way of explaining what a drift is. Is it not so?
Yeah, drifting is essentially loss of traction with oversteer. So many people are asking, what is oversteer? So technically, Nadia has come with an Evo, right? So
Yes.
Evos don't suffer from such problems. It's all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So for drifters, you need a car that is rear-wheel drive, like 1, 2, and 3. So what happens is that most rear-wheel drive cars, first of all, that would be the basis of a drift car. So most rear-wheel drive cars will have a tendency of oversteer. And what does that mean? It means that since the power is coming from the back and the engine is in the front, if you put your foot down, the tendency of the car is to steer into the turn. And what happens if you put too much power, it actually oversteers into the turn. So drifting is a sort of culture, we can call it cultural sports, or some sort of, bourgeois way of controlling a car around a corner without technically losing it. So for most drifters, you'll see that the car is trying to maintain an angle, but the forward momentum of the car is not even related to. So you find that the car is trying to maintain a forward momentum, but it's actually moving sideways. Yeah. So the idea is just to lose the traction in the rear wheels and get the car running sideways or making a corner, or sometimes, as you see Eugene doing, it's called fishtailing, whereby the car is moving straight, but it's pointing in various directions, right?
Yeah, I think what people don't understand is the aspect of oversteer and understeer. That is something that is confusing people a lot. Whenever there is an event, you'll hear people talk of, you only oversteer. Then the next minute, you only understeer. So I think this is something that is confusing people a lot.
Yeah.
So we need to explain it from the basic angle of it. I think I would say this. From automotive engineering, there is understeer and then there is oversteer. So I will explain the two of them pole, so that each one of us gets it and it sticks in the head. What does the book say about oversteer? An oversteer, you see, the driver has an intention of negotiating a vehicle to take a certain curve. Maybe it is a roundabout, or maybe it is just a normal road. So oversteer happens when you intend to point a vehicle to point A, but you do not reach there. Before the vehicle gets to point A, it turns. It turns and looks where it was coming from. That is called an oversteer, because your intention was to steer to your vehicle from this point to a point here, but before you got there, the vehicle already took a different turn earlier than where you expected or where you intended to get your vehicle to. So that is called an oversteer. So in most cases, oversteering will happen when you look where you're coming from. That is an oversteer. An understeer is when you intend to steer your vehicle to point A, but you end up passing that particular point. You end up passing that particular point without taking that corner. So if you are supposed to take a corner, a curve, maybe a bend, then you end up braking the car, then vehicle gliding past that point where you are supposed to drive your vehicle, where you are supposed to pass your vehicle, then that one is called an understeer. So understeering, umepita mali ilikuwa uende. Oversteering, you have done it too much until the vehicle has to turn and try to look where it was coming from. You get that?
Yes.
Yes. So that is why we have specific cars that suffer from understeer, then specific cars that suffer from oversteer. Like you had said, for the drift cars, they suffer from
They suffer from oversteer.
Yes.
But you see, we have an Evo here that doesn't suffer from both.
From both, yes.
So it's being controlled by computers and, you know, it has active differentials that correct these things when they happen, right? So the good thing about having the Evo here comparing to this, this one delivers power to all wheels.
Yes.
So the computer can tell the car, I sense understeer, send power to the wheel that is farthest.
Yes.
I sense oversteer, reduce power on that angle so that
the vehicle just maintains that specific
so
angle.
that's why Evos are called point and shoot.
Yes.
But drift cars, on the other hand, totally different. We want the car to technically oversteer.
Yes.
Yes.
So now I think from here, henceforth, we've understood what an understeer is and what an oversteer is. Next to your question.
Now,
Yes.
so what are the different techniques of drifting that make the car understeer and oversteer?
Different techniques that make the car to understeer or oversteer.
Yes, the drifting, for it to drift.
Yes, there is the most common one that I'm fond of using, the handbrake. You know, you get too much power, then you negotiate your steering to the direction you want to go. Then by use of handbrake, we see that in most rally cars. You know, rally drivers are fond of doing that. You use your handbrake to flip your car.
With still pressing on the accelerator.
Either of them, you can decide you want to make, if you want to make a 180 turn, you can release. You not step on the gas. You just come with the car, power on. You lock the steering to one end, then you pull the handbrake. As the vehicle tries to, because of power distribution, you are putting too much power, too much weight on the rear, and you've negotiated a corner. The vehicle tend to slide. As it comes to the end of sliding, you can now start powering on, depending on where you want to go.
For it to continue.
For it to continue. For it to continue. And because it is definitely, if it's a rear wheel drive, the spin will, the vehicle will initiate a spin, and it will continue spinning in that direction. Now it will be you against your throttle, knowing how, you know, what percentage you want to accelerate, or you want to go straight, you just correct it with your steering. That is one. Two, Stigh.
Also for the handbrake,
Yes.
there's a reason why we pull the handbrake.
Yes.
You want to pull the handbrake to lock the rear wheels. So once the rear wheels have locked, what happens? They start sliding. That is what we call loss of traction in drift. But drift is not about loss of traction, it's about gaining traction, right? So what do you want the car to do? If you pull the handbrake, immediately the car will start spinning round, like 360. But you don't want that. You want to pull the handbrake and release it when the car starts losing the tail. It's trying to lose the rear. So you put your throttle down to keep, remember we said we want the car moving in a certain direction, but it's pointing in a different direction. So this is what we call the forward drift. So the car has to move that direction, but it's pointed in this direction. So you need the throttle to push you out. Then there's a concept of sideways drift. Remember, the traction is not being just lost, it's trying to be gained by the car. That is why most people think that when you put tires, those worn out tires, you can drift. Really, it's not like that. You have to put actual tires with tread on it. Because once you start drifting, the car will want to do what? To lose control. So if you have a lot of traction on your tires, it keeps the car moving in that forward momentum and that sideways momentum, right? So people might think that you put worn out tires and start drifting. Not really. You will not even go far because the tires will wear out quickly. Secondly, you'll not be able to maintain that drift. You'll just be spinning and spinning, right? So, so you must make sure that when you pull, there's a loss of traction, but then you gain. So drift is about gaining that control of the car. So maybe another technique, guys, I've seen a lot. We have a rally car edition here, right? So most people like the Scandinavian flick, which I think everyone who has watched rally, WRC is coming, of course. You've seen this being done.
Yes.
What is the...
So Scandinavian comes from the Scandinavian guys. Those guys for Finland, you know, those guys were born with rally cars. You start driving at 5 months, 10 months old. So as in, a Scandinavian flick is simple. If you look at a rally car, most of them are not going straight. You look at a rally car, it's moving forward. but the car is. So this guy, he's anticipated there's a corner there. So the first thing he does, he flicks the wheel and the car now points this way. But of course, this way there are bushes and mountains, but the corner is there. So the car will technically slide fast and then do what? Take the corner. So you flick the car into a drift, right? Yeah. And this one is used mainly if
just
of course,
with your steering?
Yes, you don't use the handbrake or anything. You just...
The opposite lock?
Yes. No, not opposite lock. It's a Scandinavian. You flick the steering like that. So once you flick it, and especially on gravel, ice...
Yani, you just do this?
Yeah, you just do that.
So it will just go and...
Yes, remember you're moving at a certain serious speed, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So once you do this, I don't know if you watch those Arab videos whereby they're like, then they do this, the car does that. Yeah. So you do that to make sure that the car moves sideways. So it chappers what is called a Scandinavian drift now. Okay. So you flick it to make it drift in a Scandinavian way. Remember also, these rally guys, they also use the handbrake to maintain that angle, right? You want the car not to go back straight. You want it to remain that angle. Of course, it's almost perpendicular to the corner. But once it gets to the corner, he uses the throttle to get now out. So if you look at the other videos that were done the other day, I think there was Anwar doing it in town. Yeah. So you enter the corner, already the car is like
Sideways.
that. Yeah. So that's a Scandinavian flick, right? Yeah. The other guys will be using another common technique, which you said is?
Opposite lock?
Opposite lock. But opposite lock is a technical term for driving. Okay. So opposite lock is just that you're going this way, but your tires are facing that way. Yeah?
How?
Because first of all, we said you're losing traction, but the momentum is what is supposed to keep. We are talking about forces of physics now, which are technical. The car is supposed to go straight, but you're pointing this way. So what you do, you counter steer so that the wheels go that way and lead the car towards the direction you want to go, though the car is facing a very undeserving direction, right? One of the other things that people have seen is power over, right? AMG drivers know this, yeah? AMG drivers know this, yeah? So if you have a very powerful car, like your car has so much power, it sends all the power to the rear wheels. Once I put my foot down, what happens? It just starts sliding. Yeah. So that's a power over. It means the power of the car is very, very enduring. It pushes the limit of the traction of the tires, and the tires will just start spinning. So that is what most guys, you'll see them doing. And I think if you watch videos from Tanzania, Uganda, most of these guys, they do what? They rev the car very high. Then you release the brake. What happens? The car starts doing a burnout. Spinning, yeah. So once it starts doing a burnout, the power has overcome the traction in the tires. So unlike launching in TT where you want to get off fast, this guy wants to get off sideways. So he makes sure that the tires are really spinning in the rear. And then what do? You start counter steering the car to maintain the angle you want and the direction you want, right? Of course, there are other small techniques that guys usually use, but these are the three main. And there are others like the chokidori in Japan. It's kind of like a Scandinavian flick, but it's not. Yeah. So if you look at a lot of Japanese videos from the past, they come into a two-gear corner. What do? They come in. They do like a certain, it's not like a Scandinavian flick, but they do a smoother technique. So you see, they like the long cars, like for the 80, 86, they are cars that are bred to have a lot of 50-50 weight distribution. So when you do this, like the Miata is like 100 horsepower, but it likes that chokidori style, so that when you're coming into a corner, you just do that, and then you find that the car just wants to go. Of course, you need a bit of speed, but the car will want to just slide around the corner. Okay. Yeah.
What about this? Well, you talked about when you accelerate the car, you take off, you've steered the vehicle. It is taking off in a sideways position. There is this technique where you see people, on a straight line. Jim does it in Masinga a lot, What is it called?
So most people, the easiest term we call it is fishtailing.
Fishtailing, yes.
So it's like the tail of a fish.
Yes.
So the car is moving in a straight line, of course directionally, but physically it's fishtailing. And this is what you call counter steering. So like when it wants to go you have to counter steer this way. So you have to train your hands.
So as it goes this
Yeah.
way, you make it go that way.
Yes. So it's not correction per se, but it's maintaining of that direction.
straight line.
Yeah. So you want it to maintain a straight direction, but the car is literally
So I would say,
the angles. Yeah.
I would just say you overcorrect, then immediately you also overcorrect. You overcorrect, then you also overcorrect.
Let's call it correct.
Because if you correct it, it will go straight.
Yeah.
So I think overcorrecting, you also get, you ensure that it gets back into the fishtail
Yeah.
from your correction.
Yeah.
So you have to overcorrect it,
Yeah.
then it goes left, then you also overcorrect it,
Yeah.
goes right, overcorrect it, goes left.
Yeah, and you'll see it's a very beautiful thing, I'll call it that.
Yes.
Because it doesn't require a lot of input in the steering. You just do that. It's a bit of a majestic way of drifting.
Yes.
You don't like wow. No. You're
Don't
not.
fight with it.
You're not playing PS here, pressing buttons. So you just move it slightly and slightly. And the idea is that even you don't need this on a very high-powered car.
Yeah.
It actually, most of the rear-wheel drive cars can do that. And you'll find that if the car has a very good weight distribution, 50-50, the RX-7, the Nissan's 180s, A86, any car that has a 50-50 distribution is naturally inclined to do that very nicely. Yeah.
There's one thing we forgot to mention. For a drift car, for it to be able to do all those things that we're talking about, it has to be a closed diff, right?
Well,
Yes.
it's a closed diff.
Yes.
But also you can get the difference. There's an open diff, there's a closed diff. For a drift car to take part in any drift event, there has to be locking of both the rear wheels, right?
Yes.
Most cars you'll find that one wheel spins faster than the other. That's called open diff, right? Then you have guys with LSD. So the LSD, you'll find that it locks at a certain percentage at a certain speed, right? Or then you find the other guys who have the LSD that could be 1.5 way or 2-way locking. So it locks properly once you start drifting. Others will lock a certain percentage and then you're able to drift. So the major what guys do naturally is, sorry, we forgot to carry a welded diff. So most what guys do, they take what are called the star axles, the ones that go into the diff, and then they weld the inside, the matumbo. You weld it together, forever together, never apart. So you marry those two such that most of the time your car will have what? A sort of locking on both rear wheels. Yeah. And it's very, very, very technical to drive, but once you start learning how to drive the car that way, you will not ever leave well the diff alone. It's one of the best modifications you can do early enough in a drift car.
Inside a differential, there is the planet gears and the sun gears. So what he's talking about, you weld to ensure that the planet and the sun move as a whole component.
Yeah.
You see, it moves as a whole component. Yeah. Compared to the way it will move. From I think geography, we all understand how the sun revolves around its own axis and moves. I don't know what.
Yeah.
So the same aspect was also borrowed and put into a differential, whereby there is one sun gear with planet gears moving around it, so that at any given time, one of your wheels will move independently. Supposing or depending on the road contours, one road wheel touches on maybe a slippery ground, rotates. But now he talked of LSD. LSD means limited slip differential, whereby you are trying to limit the slippage of one of the tires, so that it moves as if it is a one component at a given time whenever one of the wheels starts spinning out. So he has said we weld the diff so that all the wheels are moving at same speed as one unit, so that you can be able to, fishtail like he said. You can be able to do the full donut. You can be able to do the burnouts at the same time instead of one tire doing only that. So all this technique can be achieved when you move, or when you make your diff to move as a solid by the easiest way, he said, welding it. There are other expensive ways, like he said, limited slip differential. He said there is one that locks all the wheels permanently. There is one that locks them according to a different ratio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all that. So it is not Greek he's talking. He's just ensuring that all your rear wheels move as one thing, come a drum, come a pipa, so that this car can move sideways and sideways. You understand that?
Yes.
You're getting
now
that?
I get it, yes.
Yes. You've seen cases whereby a vehicle is stuck and only one wheel is spinning. So this vehicle cannot be able to get out of that position that is stuck in. But when the two wheels move together that car will easily get out of that stuck position.
Yeah. I'm understanding more now. Yes.
Yes. So I think now the technique, we've seen people, we've seen guys doing burnout just in one stationary position. Sometimes guys will tell you, that car has got two ways of braking, two systems of braking, whereby he's holding the front brake and the rear brakes are not, they are not engaged, which is not true, because for you to get a burnout, when you look at the car, in most cases, you step on the brake pedal and the clutch at the same time, then you accelerate, then you release only the clutch, still on the brake pedal. So, due to too much force, the rear brakes, because they have the differential with them, even though you are still braking the vehicle, it will be forced to start rotating, right?
Yeah.
It will still get forced to start rotating, but the front brakes are still holding the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's just one system, one and the same system. But because one has been overcome by power, the brake will not be able to hold that rotating disc. As it keeps rotating, it gets a lot of heat. Due to that heat, the coefficient of friction is lost. You see, you need friction to be able to hold something stationary. But because it has started moving, slowly by slowly, it keeps getting heat. Then eventually the coefficient of friction gets lost, and that tire will rotate so fast. But the front tire, because it is not moving, it is still being held by the brake. So that is how you get the donut. And
in fact, the first skill drifters need to learn is doing a stand burnout.
A stationary burnout.
Yeah, so you need to do one. That way you can now learn the next techniques, right?
Techniques, yes.
So the first one is you learn how to do a burnout.
That is the most basic one.
It's gonna cost you tires, which is okay. But learn.
Even for that, you need a rear wheel drive?
Yes.
Yes, you need a rear wheel drive car. You can have the other configurations, of course, like there are guys who have, like Lambo, they have engines in the rear, you've seen.
Yes.
But most of them will suffer what is called like lift of oversteer, snap oversteer. Like you might find that the weight of the engine is a bit too much on the rear, such that when you want to take the corner, that weight makes the steering snap. So it calls a snap oversteer. Or sometimes when you're driving and then you lift off, all this weight you're carrying in the boot, like a mirror truck, wants to go. So it will tend to push the car, and then when you lift off, you find that the car wants to steer itself
into one direction.
Yeah, so that's one reason why most people will not put the engines in the rear or choose the configuration of engines in the rear, because the weight can cause a little bit of problems with physics, right? But once you've learned how to do a burnout in a rear wheel drive car, of course you've welded your diff. Most of the time we want it to be a manual car, but you can see clearly guys have learned how to do this with automatic cars and all that.
Why?
Well, because manual cars are not lazy.
Personally, I feel because you'll be in full control of a manual car. You'll be in full control. You know, in the event of clutch kicking, you will do it by yourself. You know, I'm losing power, I need to clutch kick. You also know, at this particular time, I want to maybe release the clutch partially or fully, but for an automatic car, it will not give you that room.
So it's easier to drift with a manual than
Yes, and an automatic will have the notion that it wants to shift up all the time.
Yes.
And for drifting not a sport for fourth and fifth gear. You probably would need only 1 and 2.
Yeah.
1 to get you into the speed, then 2 to maintain the speed, right?
Yeah.
And one of the cars, like you see the cars here, they are all manual except this one. But the car you want to maintain the car at certain RPMs, like 7,000 RPM. And you've mentioned, of course, there's another technique we call the clutch kick. This is where the clutch kick comes into play. Or sometimes people will do the other technique, which we call the downshift, right?
Yes.
So, for example, you're going nicely, happily at gear 3, then you downshift quickly to gear 2. What happens? Gear 3 was moving at a different speed to gear 1 in the gearbox. So once you do that, with that RPM, so much power is released to the rear.
Yes,
And what
instantly.
happens? You lose traction because now there's too much spinning and you lose it. So you'll see most of the drifting guys are like, their feet are like, so they keep on clutch, such that the tire keeps on, like it wants to lock traction and lose traction immediately. And it helps you also steer. And the Japanese love it so much. You might see someone's foot on the brake, it's going like that. I don't know, it's also behind. But he's trying to, as much as possible, clutch kick. But also, it's not just clutch kicking, but he starts off with a high gear, then immediately goes to a lower gear, then he does that, and he clutch kicks it.
I think because he's hunting for torque. You know, when you downshift, you just basically leaving a gear that had more speed and less torque, but now coming to a gear that has less speed but too much torque.
Yeah.
So, and that is what you need because you want the tires to spin too much.
Oh, okay.
So, I think clutch kicking and downshifting, they all basically do almost the same thing, but I've seen Lujin on Whistling Moran. Whenever we go with him on Whistling Moran, he's losing power. He's still in the same gear, maybe third gear, but he'll just clutch kick.
Yeah.
He'll just clutch kick to get the car almost sideways.
So he gets the car to a higher RPM.
Yes.
Remember, even if you look at stats, someone will say that Evo is an FQ 360. So we're talking about the maximum RPM it gets its horsepower. So they'll say at 6,800 RPM you get all the power.
Yeah.
So that is where we want that power to come in, right? So you clutch, make the RPMs go all the way there and release, you get all that power there and then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How I wish we had my friend Jibril here. How I wish we had my friend Jibril. There is a technique that Jibril does a lot. He's known for it a lot of time, especially on Whistling Moran. Getting in, sideways.
That's a chokidori he does.
Yes.
Yes, he's a chokidori guy.
Okay.
It's a rare technique. You must be a chokidori guy.
What is it? What is that?
Like I said, he starts off, if you look at his GC8, he starts off and he wants to he throws the back of the car. So when you do that,
Not that flick thingy.
of course you flick to throw the back.
Yeah.
So you want the car to start entering with the back, the rear end. So you can see that he just does it smoothly. And at times he would put the handbrake at the end to maintain the angle. But he
What
wants...
you call the reverse entry, right?
It's not really reverse. Reverse entry is very specific for guys who are pro level, yeah?
Yes.
Because then if you need a lot of power to maintain, remember we talked about direction. You have to maintain the direction you're going at, right? Yeah. So Nadia, any more questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, first horsepower, does it matter?
Horsepower in drifting. Let's say horsepower is a personal question. If you can get as much horsepower as possible, they're good for you. The only problem with too much horsepower is reliability, right? But Miatas, they drift at 100. These cars drift with 100, 200 horsepower. You don't need a lot of horsepower. Provided you have a rear-wheel drive car, manual and welded diff, you're good to go.
So the power
Yes,
needed.
for Formula Drift, they started off at 500 horsepower. Now I think the lowest horsepower car they have is 1200 horsepower. So Formula Drift started at 500 horsepower, but every day they keep upping the engines. But this also brings a problem. You find that in between drifts, they remove the engine, they rebuild it again. I mean, that we can do in Kenya right now.
It's not as reliable.
Yeah, so they rebuild the engine again. Even between the tournaments, you are allowed to rebuild your engine, right? Yeah, even Ryan Tuak rebuilt his engine during the last drift session, right?
I think for me, Nadia, I think I would say, if you have the hardware, the required hardware for drifting, horsepower is not even important.
Yeah.
You can drift any car as long as the hardware is supporting drifting, is to standard.
Yeah.
You can drift. I've seen guys drift. Buses. I've seen guys drift dump trucks. I've seen guys drift.
Go to South Africa.
K trucks. Those smallest cars.
South Africa, they use Gusheshe.
Yes.
These cars,
Yeah.
100 horsepower only.
Yeah.
Eastern Europe use the ladder nivel, the ladders, sorry.
Yeah, the ladder, yes, I've seen
And the ladder is 80 horsepower.
Yes.
Miata is 90 horsepower in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, people don't need power most of the time.
Yes.
You just need a car that is rear wheel drive.
So after you've begun drifting now, depending on which tournament you want to participate, now you look at power. Yes, you look at power. But initially, any car, as long as it's a rear wheel drive, it's a manual car, it's lightweight, it can drift.
Yeah.
And speed? How much speed does one need to drift?
I don't know what Stigh will say, but for me, I think depending on which hardware you have, now speed comes in. Are you drifting a 100 horsepower car? Are you drifting a 1000 horsepower car? So, depending on which hardware you have, which car you have, is it a very light car? Is it a Datsun 1200? We've seen all these pickups drift, Datsun 1200 drift. I think speed will only come in which tires you have, what weight you have, and which engine you have. And
also, speed comes into play if you look at traction. So I think you've seen a lot of videos, even on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. When it's wet, you don't need speed.
Yes.
Yeah? So you just flick the car, it starts drifting around about. For example, even out here, even on this surface.
What's the story behind that water?
Water creates a surface where you plane. So the tires are not getting any friction. So you lose traction. But now you maintain control. Momentum. Drift is maintaining control of the car, right?
Yeah.
And also one of the things that you see guys doing, even on tarmac, you don't really require to use a lot of power. If you look at most of the videos, people start with a donut. You can start with a small donut, right?
Yeah. So we go from burnout
to donuts. Yeah. So that is the second skill that you need to learn.
Yeah.
You see,
you are a very good student.
Yeah, you see, most of the most of the Evo people and most of the Subaru guys, they do donuts very well.
Yeah.
So, if you want the donut to be larger, what do you do? Do you add more power or do you release more power?
I would say it will depend. First of all, for me, the way I see it, it will depend on how you are correcting it.
Yeah.
If you correct it too much, then you're going to get a very small radius of donut. But if you also try to get the angular, where your vehicle is moving, you try to get to opposite that direction, your donut will be...
So essentially, all things maintained constant in reality, like your cornering and all that, how do you make a donut larger or smaller? We use the throttle.
Yes.
The more throttle you put, the car will want to turn in. It makes the donut smaller.
Oh.
So the more you release the throttle, the donut starts becoming bigger. So if you want to make the donut smaller,
so you just control
it
with your
throttle.
That is interesting.
So you see, it's a technique that you need to learn your car. That's the problem
you let go, it goes...
Yes, you don't just let go all of it, but you release some throttle, the donut opens up. You put more throttle, the donut closes up. Why? Because of course you're putting in more power, and it's driving the wheels to want to turn into that spiral. But then you want to release more power, the car is already in a drift. So what you want to do is make the donut bigger or smaller. And that's why you see most of the guys, even in South Africa, Zambia, we have a couple of them. I hope they come. They had given us some notice that they will come. They do that very well with a very underpowered car. Sometimes he'll leave the car doing a donut, he's outside the car. Because he understands that at that throttle level, that car will do that.
There.
So it remains there.
So the throttle is locked to a certain position.
And you see what he does? He just puts a lock on the steering to maintain constant. So the steering will just point in that direction. And he comes out, the car it can spin there forever. Technically, that he can come back and jump inside, you know, But he doesn't rev. He maintains, there's a certain spot, you need to learn your car, a certain spot where it can maintain a donut at a certain level.
I think I'll try to equate that. I don't know if the example will be irrelevant, but I'll try to equate that to centrifugal forces of water spinning and, you know, like the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes, you can put a boat, spin it faster, the boat will want to come in the middle, or you release it, the boat wants to go.
Centrifugal forces. The more you spin, the the more closer it wants to get in.
Yeah.
The less you spin, the outer it wants to get out.
This is the third most important skill that drifters need to learn. So we've talked about Nadia one.
The burnout, the donut, and then controlling your throttle.
You must learn.
Get the radius of
Yes.
the donut. Yes.
So you can do a donut, yes, but you have to know how to make the donut wider. That's why when you want to go, God forbid, you want to go to maybe one of the big roundabouts in Nairobi, you can't go with the same power for the small donut. You'll enter the roundabout. So you must make sure you understand how much throttle you require to make the donut big, so that you go round a big roundabout.
Yes.
Or maybe you say we want to put Nadia in the middle and you want to drift around Nadia. So you have to know how much power you want to step on Nadia. So you just want a small donut. So you understand how much power you require rather than hitting Nadia and all that. So,
by mistake, the leg goes a bit more.
Yeah. And one of the other important things about donuts, of course we'll go to the next technique, is once you learn how to drift, maybe it's like right-handed people and left-handed. When you drift, you technically become a right-hander or a left-hander. Yes. What do I mean? Some people prefer left donuts. Some people prefer right donuts.
Yes.
So you like chocolate donuts, right? You prefer KFC or you know.
Whichever your hand is easier to move.
Yes, and you as a drifter you must learn both.
Yes.
Why? Because after that, the next skill you need to learn is doing a figure 8.
Yes.
So, like for example, these two tires, you'd want to drift left into that, right into that. So now you're doing.
Then you need.
Yeah. So now you're doing semi donuts. Yes. You get.
Yes.
So you must learn as a drifter not to be dependent on the right-sided donut and the left-sided, and that's one of the reasons why you find most people who have perfected this can now do tandem donuts.
Yes.
So you see, me and Nadia, we want to both do donuts. So Nadia will go this way and I'll go that way. So we do both donuts at the same time. And then after some time, we change and then we go back. So if we practice a lot, we can do it, yeah? It's like dancing, yeah? Yeah.
So basically, what Stigh is saying is for you to be able to master the art of drifting, you have to understand your vehicle, the throttle, and also the technique that you want to perform. You do not want to be drifting around someone, then you are just lost in mind. You are stepping on that person, or you are stepping on the cone. Because at the end of the day, if it is a competition, then it means you are losing points. You want to be able to move around a certain position and just to be able to clip on it, but not to touch.
Yes.
No, okay, to be closer to it. You want to be closer to a certain point, because I believe in competition. The closer you are to maybe to a cone or to a certain wall or maybe to a hanging ball
or to your friend next door,
the more points you get.
Yes.
Opposed to how far you are.
But that brings you to the next technique of drifting. Now the next skill would be doing what? Connecting drifts. So once you've learned how to do a spot burnout, that is number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, donut.
Yes.
Then number 3, you have to know how to expand the donut. Right?
Yeah.
Then number 4 is how to do
left and right.
2 left and right donuts.
Yes.
Then the next one comes how to connect a drift. One of the reasons we chose the track is it teaches you how to connect a drift. So the red circuit has a straight, into a left, into a right, into a left, into a right. So you see, it removes the bias that you want to always be a right-hander or I want to always be a left-hander. No. So it makes sure that it cancels the effect of you being biased to always cut to the right or to the left. And also it has hairpins. Yes. So the hairpins teach you, if I've completed the right drift, I want to go to the left drift. You completed the left drift. So how do you connect? And you see, connection is where the magic now begins for drift. Right? Yeah. And you look at all the drift videos, Ken Block, the idea that he can connect from a donut into a fishtail, into now, you can see that he comes and drifts around a guy on a Segway. Yeah. Then he expands the donut. Then he comes back in the middle. Then he goes out, changes the donut, comes back again. You get? Yeah. And you see, most of the time he's using throttle and steering. You might see him using the handbrake just a bit. But it's now he has understood the style of the car and his own style, right? And then the other thing about drifting scoring is very funny. Your style earns you more points. Well, of course, how the car looks first. You know how the car looks rusty. It's been through a lot of life, inflation and all that. But the car looks like a drift car. That is already 10 points, right?
Steve,
Yeah.
you've talked about two things that I do not want us to leave them behind.
Yeah.
You talk about hairpin.
Yeah.
Maybe there's someone out there who's wondering what is hairpin.
Okay.
Ladies are fond of hairpins.
You have a hairpin? Oh no, your probably is a pin. Eh? So the hairpins are like a U-turn, right?
Yeah.
So for the red circuit, it's a U-turn connected to another opposing U-turn, connected to another opposing U-turn. So and each one of them...
You don't see the end of the corner.
Yeah, so the thing that is interesting about it is that the U-turns have increasing radius as you go.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like we've talked about, you have a narrow donut. You want to widen your donut. As you finish, you want to have the biggest donut. So that is the same as the circuit. The first corner is very tight. Yeah, you remember when you were in the track. So that one is very tight. That one you might even have to pull your handbrake, right?
Yeah.
But the second one is not as tight. Then the third one is wider. Then you finish with the widest one, right?
So in simple terms, a hairpin is just a straight rod that has a U-turn. Either, of course, a U-turn is going back to where you're coming from, going upward, then going downward. Sometimes you can have hairpins that are, compressed together, straight, then up, down, up, down. When you draw this rod, it will look like the actual hairpin that we use to hold either the peppers or...
I don't use it.
Yeah. Okay, I think we use it to hold peppers. Sometimes we use hairpins to hold peppers.
Yeah.
Then you also talked about moving from one technique to the other. That is, I think I would say, transition from one technique to the other.
Yeah.
Are we going to see this on the track?
Of course, yes. That's the main reason we are going there.
Yes.
Yeah, it has to happen because, first of all, you've attended the school.
Yes.
And second of all, you have the car ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Third of all, you had some breakfast. You've slept well.
Yeah.
You didn't go out at night and you came back and your reflexes are very good.
Yes, yes.
And then you can take the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nadia, as you ask the next question, I think I'll want to check online and see what if there are any other questions. I think you will be asking the first question or the next question as I check the social media.
Okay.
Okay. What cars can you use to drift?
So technically, rear-wheel drive cars with manuals.
But it doesn't matter the make,
But they are kind of like if your pocket is willing, and your accountant says yes, you're good to go. But like you see, we start off with like this car would probably be $1,000, maybe like 100K. Very light, manual. You can start with that. There's a Miata, same price range, 200K. You can do the 190 Benzes, same price range. You can start off with these cars that are manual and rear-wheel drive. And both cars, if you look at them...
So requirements, it's manual is not actually a must.
But it's a must now. Let's just say it for now, it's a must.
For beginners.
Yes, for beginners.
Rear-wheel drive, the welded diff.
Yes.
What else was there?
And the other thing you need to do, one of the things that comes after that is because you're revving your car high, you check your water. So you're cooling your radiator, you need to upgrade it a bit or put a fan that is running full time to cool your water, right? But after that, you're good to go. So in Kenya, you find locally there's the 190s, we have the 124s, we have the BMW E36s, all that. We have Nissans here, the 350Z, we have the Fair Ladies. Some people will go to the Mazda RXs. Yeah, they are technically difficult to work with, but they work, right? Some people will want to go to some rare cars, like for example, the big sedans, right? You can get the E39s, the E34 BMWs. They're a bit heavy, but they do the work. They still do the work, right? So it depends. Like you find that most people would want the long car because the long car has weight. You throw the weight. So you want to throw the rear of the car all over the place. So that's good with them. And one of the other things you like with some of these small cars is that they have a lot of good weight distribution, 50-50. So it makes the car very easy to start with as a first drift car, right? Next question.
Well, I think I want to emphasize one thing, that because Stigh has started the drift school, like he's saying, we're having a drift school, we're having drift awareness. We also want to put it across to our viewers out there that we are also advocating for safe drifting. We do not want to see guys trying to drift on roads, you know, we're drifting in malls where it is not controlled, drifting in petrol stations, doing burnouts and donuts in petrol stations. Isn't it so?
Well, drift is about safety first. Yeah?
Yes.
So, I mean, look at it like this. If, for example, something happens to you on the road and you know how to drift, like you step on a puddle of water, you lose control over your car, or, for example, you lose a tire, the car starts getting into a sort of a loss of traction or a drift. First of all, drift is a good skill to have.
Yes.
Just like swimming and driving, yeah? So many people don't drive, they. I have a friend till date that I know drive. He doesn't want to drive. But I also have a friend who can't swim. But I think one of the skills you should have is drift it's also taught in defensive driving techniques, whereby you go, you pull the handbrake, you turn quickly, you can see it in the movies, security. It's a very good skill to have, especially if you've trained yourself and you meet a pro trainer who tells you how to sharpen your skill. Remember, you only learn from the best. You don't learn from the worst. So you learn from them and they tell you how to do this. The first thing they'll tell you about safety. Yeah. Second, they'll prevent you from having unnecessary accidents and unnecessary costly mistakes, right? So if you have a pro guy teaching you, I'll take it, right? The training is free. You don't pay for it. Yeah. Prepare your car. You have, how many days do you have? 2 weeks to go.
2 weeks to go. Yeah.
Prepare your car. Yeah. If there's a guy who's offering a free lesson, you must take it. I mean, if you want to learn drifting safely, you do it. Yeah. Thirdly, we are doing it in a safe environment, in a racetrack.
So someone has asked, I've come across like 3 questions. Someone has asked, how often are we going to be seeing these drift tournaments? After this one, how often are we going to be seeing these drift tournaments?
Well, these things are expensive to organize, but we know that with time, we get a lot of sponsorship and all that. In the long run, we can be doing 2-3 events per year. And one of the things that is the main goal of the event is to actually do the same in Uganda, Tanzania, to have a circuit. Then we invite, of course, Zambians, Zimbabweans are likely to come. Egyptians want to come also. Yeah. So as East Africa, we are very strong in drifting. Of course, Ugandans and Tanzanians are a bit ahead of us, but we are catching up. We have told them we are catching up. But once we meet in a tournament, we'll be able to see who has skill. One thing you'll discover about drift cars, you can see the drift cars. It's a character of the owner of the car. It's 100% the character of the owner of the car, right? Some people will paint it, some will not. Some people will prefer big rims, some will go small rims. Some will prefer my car to be rustic, the outlook. Some people will prefer the car. It's an outward expression. It's an artistic form for the driver, right?
Yes.
So whenever you see him drifting in his car, he's at one with his art, right? So one of the things about drifting is not just to promote drifting, it's to promote these artists to come and show us, for example, what they build in their houses, right? Nadia has built an Evo. We would want to see the Evo and what it can do. So if this guy has a very good E30 here, we want to see what it can do. And you see many people have put in big, powerful engines. Some have the normal engines and they're drifting with them. Those two have different styles of drifting. One has a lot of power, one has less power. Yeah. And then you'll find that one with less power could be even 100 times better at drifting because of his style. Yeah. Going back to what we are talked about, of course the car has to look 10 points, then the style comes into play. How well you handle your car. You know, your car cannot overpower you. You are the master of the car. So you have to understand how well to master your car. Then how well to master the drifting techniques, right? Yeah. So those are the things we want to do in a safe environment, right? Yeah.
Next question. It was for Nadia.
Yes, it was Nadia's question.
No, I've been asked a question about Nadia.
Yes.
Someone asked here,
yes,
what made you love drifting, and for how long have you been driving? Are you driving a stick shift? That is a question that I've been posed here. What made you to love drifting? For how long have you been driving? And whatever car you drive, is it a manual car?
Okay, I have been driving for since I was 14, 15. And yes, it's a
illegally.
manual car. It's my first manual car.
Yes.
So I'm not perfect at it, but I'm learning. And as far as drifting, you know, watching those videos of the Japanese drifters and how beautiful it looks, like it's peaceful to even just look at how the car is going. Even if inside the car, their hands are
Before they
moving
crash,
like
yeah?
this. Yes. But the way it looks, you get so interested.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you can do so much with the car. Like you can do endless possibilities of how you can move the car in any direction you want it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
All right. So I think I'll ask Stigh the next question. I said I had 3 questions. The next question I'll ask Stigh after you ask him your question now.
Mine is related to money.
Money. Oh, goddamn. a tough
So
one.
costs of drifting.
Like every motorsport, there are costs. Of course, there's the tires, and other guys will talk about the car itself. We don't like including the cost of the car into it, because depends on what you get, right?
But
you
the
can
way
start
you
with
said,
a
the
cheap car or an
diff and
expensive.
you welding it.
Yeah.
And
So most of the cars will come with an open diff like this. Then we weld it. Welding, you just open the diff. Of course, you need a specialized mechanic to open it, and then you need specialized rods to weld it because the diff, the internals are very hard. Yeah, they're actually very, very cut. I think they're cut from a solid piece of block so that they don't snap. So you need a very hot rod to weld it. So you need like around, let's say 7,000 shillings to weld your diff. Remember, when you weld it, it becomes permanent like that. So one of the other 2 things you should do.
can you blow your engine?
Wow, any engine can blow. Subaru guys know this.
Drifting, like
So, so blowing engines, well, we rarely see these ones blowing the engines because they are stock. They've not been modified. So it's very good to start with an unmodified engine. Yeah, because most of these engines you can find them, of course, at.
so that's not a big cost. Like
Yeah,
it's not,
the engines. I'd say the engines for this car are roughly 40k. So even if it blows, you can put another one, some slightly bigger cc, and put another one. Continue. So the major issue is just weld the diff and lots and lots of tires. So anyone who can donate tires, feel free to donate cars to the drifters. We have one guy who
and
wants
you
to
need
sponsor
a
them.
special type
Yeah.
of tire, Ama.
Well, generally speaking,
Semi-slick.
narrow tires drift better in lower horsepower cars, right?
Narrow.
Narrow meaning the width of the tire. So most people will be at the
But I
195s,
think drift cars
165s
having really fat tires.
because they're high powered, yeah? So the high powered drift cars, they don't have a problem of traction, right? I step like this, I get 1,000 horsepower now. I don't have a problem. I can put even 275 width tires, yeah? But I have the power, yeah? But most of them you see with the high horsepower cars, if you put a 165 tire and he does like this, that tire will be done. So he needs a wider tire that
To last
tends to
longer.
last longer in like a whole drift session, right? Yeah.
So
So
a bigger surface area.
yes, if you put a very narrow tire, first of all, what happens to the tire? It becomes very hot, like you said, and not just hot, it burns out faster. So there are guys for these cars, you get the narrow tires, it's fine. You can see they are doing narrow tires, but some guys will be like 265s, some guys will go all the way to 300s, right? Yeah.
Okay.
There's another cost, of course, fuel. Eh? Fuel is expensive, man, but you need a lot of fuel too.
Do drifting.
Yeah, but the rest of it
And a
is
good fuel cell.
yeah. The most of it is maybe a good mechanic, and you remove a lot of weight from your car. So all those things you think are creature comforts like seats and all that carpet, even the door panels, you remove them because it makes the car light and easier to handle. Yeah.
All right. Stigh, someone asked, someone is afraid. They want to do drifting, but they do not know where to make their hardware. He said, I have a car, but I don't know how to prepare it for drifting. Are there places in Kenya where we can get, to have a vehicle set up for drifting?
Boosted, yeah. End of topic.
Yeah, boosted and any other? You do it yourself?
I do it myself. I do all my work myself.
Yeah.
So I do it myself, but I also have some friends who come over to help.
Yeah.
They are not here today, of course, because you know how friends can be. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they usually come around lifting the car. You need tools first, but also you need a lot of expertise. YouTube is a good teacher,
Yeah.
but the best teacher is experience.
Sure.
So once you open it and close it, you'll become good at it.
Yeah, Stigh knows how to do these things. He knows which person or where to get some of the components, some of the best technicians around. Stigh will lead you through. We also do the same here at Boosted. In fact, we have two projects. We have two project cars that are ongoing right now. It's only that they are not in the picture. We are trying to...
Which ones are they?
E30s.
Oh, like that one?
Yes, like this one. We
nice.
have an E30 Coupe and an E30 Four-door, which we are
sedan,
building.
yeah?
Yes, the sedan. We are building for drift, and they are just behind us right now. I think if we had time, we will take our cameras to go and see what we are doing.
Okay.
But I think that will be our first drift projects that we are doing. I think from that, we shall keep on doing more if time will allow and if money will allow. And if people will like the sport. I think we're almost coming to an end of our show. We still left like around 15 minutes. So I'll ask if there are still online questions that are coming through. People should ask their questions. Then Stigh, anything you feel like you need to let people know and people understand about drifting and about the event that is coming up.
Maybe, are there any event questions? No
Any
event questions?
Yeah. What cars are we seeing?
There. You'll see a lot of Germans, fair ladies, the Nissans. Nissans love drifting. We have Toyotas, but mostly you'll see the Nissans, the Germans. The Germans like drifting. Most of the Germans are rear-wheel drive. Yeah.
And does Kenya have drifters?
Kenya has drifters. You're looking at them. Everyone can be a drifter. Anyone can be a drifter. You just
Anybody
have to
can drift.
Yeah, just go watch Tokyo Drift, get yourself into the mood of drifting, or go watch a few things about drifting, and then commit your wallet. Eh?
Yeah, it is expensive to come up with proper hardware for drifting.
Yes, but nothing in life comes cheap, right?
Yeah,
if
sure.
it comes cheap, probably it's not genuine, right?
Yeah. Any other?
So if I want to start learning how to drift,
First thing first, get the car. Second thing, tukutane drift school.
this is how.
I think, Stigh, people should understand this. You said there is a drift school happening on
July 1st.
on July 1st.
Yeah.
July 1st, we're having a drift school. This is for the drivers. You see, when you say a drift school, people will think, I want to come, I do not know how to start a vehicle, I do not know how to drive, and I want to come to a drift school. That is one. Number two, you have to know how to drive a manual, right? You see, there are drivers that have never stepped in a manual car, but they may want to come for the drift school. Is it something that they would learn within only one day and be able to compete the following day?
Practice does not make,
Perfect.
it makes progress.
Yes.
So everything in life is a progress.
Yeah.
It's a process. So you learn by experiencing. So you start by experiencing the school. So the school has a bit of theory, a lot of practical. So the practical makes you better. Yeah, not perfect. It makes you better than you entered the school.
Yes.
When you entered, you were green. When you left, you're better.
Yeah, we're talking about this particular day. On
Yes,
this particular
that
day.
exact day.
Yeah, on this exact day. When we say a drift school, do we mean you will just present yourself, or do you need to present yourself with a car?
You need to register online,
Yes.
first of all. Second of all, you need to have a car. You have to have a make of a car. You cannot come there and use the teacher's car. Yeah,
Yes.
It's not allowed. Yeah?
So kindly note that. You need to register online. What is the process of the procedure of
The
registering?
links are on IG, Facebook page, Valkyrie's Racing. They are also on Boosted page and also from Raving Heart.
Yeah.
Tell us about Raving Heart, by the way.
It's my brand. We sell automotive-inspired merchandise.
They're actually sponsoring. So, what we do, we get to come to the drift school.
Yes.
You come with your car, a load of tires on rims, and then you have a seat and one-on-one session with the teacher who tells you, this is right, this is wrong, what you're doing, you're being too anxious, too much throttle. You can also use brake. Actually, one of the techniques that, of course, we've not spoken about, techniques for drifting are quite a number, but there are guys who like the braking technique, yeah? And I'm sure you've seen it a lot, yeah? You go very fast into the corner, then you brake.
Oh,
So it locks the front wheels, and then you turn the steering just a bit. So when you lock the front wheels, the rear wants to go somewhere. What we do, it slides. So these are some of the techniques this guy will tell you as a pro drifter. Nadia, you look Scandinavian. your type is Scandinavian, right? So you'd probably be a Scandinavian flicker, right? Or he'll tell you, you guy, your hand is always itching for the handbrake. So you look like you just want to pull it, focus on handbrake, right? So I'd say, I look like a guy who wants to do what? To do more or less of power over. So I go hot, then brake, and I want to twist the car, fight, because the car, my car is a bit long. So I'd probably be going for the power over, or I swing the tail and lose it. So it depends with which car you have, and it's not necessarily as direct as just going with the other Subarus and Evos and just putting your foot down and stepping on the brake. This one requires a lot of style and a lot of balls, but it also requires you to be a bit committed, right? So you have to be committed when you are being taught, this is your style, this is how you should go. Practice on that, because when you practice on that style you are taught, you become a drifter faster. You get?
I think I will bring this to the end of this show, but before we sum up, I think I would say I'm urging all of you out there, if you're watching this video, kindly avail yourself for the event. Are we having tickets on the day, or is it just advance tickets only?
The tickets are being sold on the date is 1,200.
Yes.
But currently they are being sold for 1,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Currently the tickets are being sold for 1,000, and on the date, if you come there on the date,
tickets are only for the tournament,
Yes.
For the drift school is open.
The drift school is open.
Yeah.
The tickets are for 2nd. You heard that?
2nd July.
Yes. The tickets are
drift school is open event.
On 1st July, it will be an open event. You come one, come all. It will be a good day to bring your kid, because every kid out there, they enjoy anything to do with the cars. So I'm sure if you have a kid, if you have your, nieces,
bring your wife,
bring everybody on board.
Bring everyone.
Yes, everybody is invited on board. Also, I'm also urging the international drifters. We saw guys like Nick on the other day. They came and really made us so happy. The crowd was so happy from what Nick did. So we also believe there are going to be other drifters, likes of Nick, and also other drifters.
Nick, Mashan.
Yes. From
Amo is from TZ.
Yes.
We have Mushinka from Zambia. So drifting is a community. It's a very, 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 very neatly tight community. And you will not find drifters just doing things the same way as everyone Subaru guys doing. So so you find that drifters are very different niche of people, but they're still racers, to be honest. And we are all petrol heads under one big petrol head umbrella.
So if you love anything about cars, it doesn't mean only about drifting. Like you said, we are petrol heads.
Yes.
Anything automotive.
You like the smell of cars, the smell of petrol, come.
Come to the event on 2nd of July, and you can also come on 1st to see the practice and the training for the drifters, what will be happening. Lujin, the sensei, will be there to be he's the teacher, right?
Yes.
The teacher for the day.
Yes.
Lujin will be there.
Not me.
Yes. Lujin will teach us all. This is an opportunity for you. Even if you're not participating for the event, you can come and learn the techniques, because you see, this is something that we've just started, and we're going to have it from time to time. So
in fact, we'll be having more of drift school than events.
Yes.
So the drift schools will just to be...
How hard is it to learn?
To learn? Learning is easy. Humans make it difficult. Learning is easy. But let me tell you, there's a sweet spot. Like, for example, there's a sweet spot between when everything's very difficult and then when everything becomes clear. Like, you just see a roundabout, you go around, you can see an 8. So it takes a lot of breakthrough. It's just like swimming. The first time you are thrown in the deep end, that's how you were taught to swim. Yes, we were told everyone go to shallow end this week, everyone to shallow end next week. Third week, everyone was thrown to deep end. What do? You learn how to swim. Yes, so half of the people, they went home, they never came back, they were writing letters, oh, please excuse my son or daughter from swimming, he has asthma and I don't know what, CG, diarrhea, But what can happen is that the guys who learns that I can actually paddle my way out of this problem, and I can actually swim. And the same guys doing deep sea diving in course, there are guys who don't even leave the boat in course, So it's a skill, and a skill can always be sharpened.
Yeah.
Even the pro drifters still sharpen their skills.
Yeah.
If you look at pro drifting right now, young guys are coming and they are really damaging the old guys. Why? Because the weirdest thing about drifting is that everyone has their own style. So the number of drifters in the world is equal to the number of drifting styles, as opposed to rallying, and which are a bit locked to the type of driving you do. But for drifters, the type of style. Like the other day, someone came and put a Vitz and it's drifting and it's winning all the tournaments, right? Someone has put a 1,000 horsepower Mustang, it's not winning. You see, so you can come there with your old car and beat all the new cars, because drifting is very customized. Yeah,
So
It's
anyone
not
can come try.
Yeah, anyone can come try, right?
You've heard it for yourself.
Yeah.
Anyone can come try it.
Yeah.
That is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's meet on 2nd of July for the drift event. You can also come on 1st, like you had said earlier on, for the training and the drift school. Come on, come all. It will be a fun, fair event. This is
Children under 10 is free.
children under 10. You've heard from Stigh. Children under 10 will be allowed, will be given free entry to the venue.
Not short people, children under 10, yeah.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Boosted Auto, and thank you so much for joining us. Kindly like, subscribe, share, on our YouTube channel so that we reach to as many people as possible. We want to spread to spread the gospel of automotive and motorsport out there. Thank you so much, and see you.
To our sponsors,
To our sponsors,
we have Marshall, Marshall Legend. Thanks for the stickers. We also have Raving Heart.
Yeah.
We also have Boosted for giving us this nice, lovely place away from the basking sun.
Yeah.
We have 2 drivers here. We have Anto and Victor, who brought us their lovely cars. And we also have something to buy. It will be providing refreshments and food for the officials and the drivers. And we also thank the track itself and the organizers and the owners of the track for giving us a chance to bring drifting to Kenya. Of course, that is one of the biggest ones. Giving us a track to practice drifting on is.
Many guys who have trucks, they do not want to see donuts and burnouts on their trucks.
Yeah, we should have built a track next to the expressway.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
See you guys. Follow us on Instagram. Okay.